Denmark is an expensive country and it's also expensive to move here. The last thing you want is to run out of money while you move here. But how much do you need to save up? I'm going to tell you in this video. I moved here with my wife about 3 years ago, and we've had the method of calculating how much money we need, and I'm going to share with you this calculation. Now, I need to tell you that I moved to Aarhus, and so my calculation will take into consideration the numbers that are relevant for Aarhus. The method of how to calculate will be similar when you move to Copenhagen. You will just have to use different numbers, but you will see that. I'm also going to show you two different scenarios. One scenario will be when you already come with a job offer, so you just want to bridge the gap between getting your last paycheck in your old place, moving your body to Denmark, getting by until the first paycheck. Let's assume it's a 1 month period. And this is the way that I would recommend doing it. I'm also going to show you a scenario when you come here looking for a job. And now, on top of the legalities of that may not be legal for you to do, I'm also going to show you how much money you need saved up for that, because there's a huge difference. This is why I don't recommend doing it. So let's get into the numbers. Assuming that you have a job offer already lined up and you only need to bridge the gap of 1 month, the items will be as follows. First of all, you need to get into the country. So you actually need to transport your person. And for that, we could count a couple €100 for petrol if you're moving by car from a nearby country, or we could count a one-way plane ticket. But for our calculation, we're just going to put it at 3,000 crowns. Now, after you arrive, you're going to need temporary accommodation while you look for a final accommodation. And for that, I'm going to assume that you take an Airbnb, which can be had in Aarhus for around 8,000 crowns for 2 weeks. So it's 8,000 crowns. And then the next thing is you want to move in to your permanent place. And that can be very expensive in Denmark. In Denmark, landlords can ask for up to 3 months of prepaid rent on top of up to 3 months of deposit. Now that's on the higher side. What I have seen is closer to 1 month of rent. That's the first month of rent, plus 3 months of deposit. And that's what I'm going to put into this calculation, assuming an 8,000 crowns of rent for an apartment in or near Aarhus. So that's 32,000 crowns. And then you're gonna need to buy food for yourself for that 1 month of period. And for that, I would account for 3,000 crowns per person. This could be on the higher end. You could probably get by for cheaper, but let's be on the conservative side here and let's play it safe. 3,000 crowns will cover it. And then you're gonna need to pay for transportation, and you can do that by driving your car, or you can do that by using public transport. I would say 1,000 crowns will definitely cover that. You're not gonna go on long road trips, but this will get you plenty of driving, and this will be safe. So 1,000 crowns for transportation. And then you're gonna account for spending stuff on extra miscellaneous things, like grabbing a coffee with a friend every now and then, or if you have to print something or whatever. And I'm going to budget 2,000 crowns for the first 1 month for that kind of category. So this should cover all of your expected expenses, but you still want to have a rainy day fund, like a stash of money for when shit hits the fan. And the minimum that I would account for is 10,000 crowns. Because, a lot of things can go wrong. What if you have to go to the dentist? That's expensive. What if, something unexpected happens, you need to fix your car, something like that. And then you need to have money available for that. So if you add this up altogether, that ends up as 59,000 crowns with these numbers. And that's about 8,000 euros, which is very close to the figure that we had. We spent a little more, but we also bought a car right after moving here. So these numbers are closely aligned with my experience. Now, let's do another calculation of what if you don't have a job offer. Your idea is to come here and then start applying for jobs. And mind you, it can take a long time to get hired in Denmark, or it can take a short time. You don't know. Locals also struggle sometimes finding jobs, as well as people applying from abroad. So let's assume that it will take 6 months, and let's build up how much money we need to cover that. Also, it might be illegal for you to just come here with the intention of looking for a job, depending on your nationality and whether or not you need a visa. So go ahead and check that if that's your plan. But anyway, transportation, the first item is going to be the same. It's 3,000 crowns to get you here. The second item, temporary accommodation, we're gonna extend that because in order to take permanent place, you need a CPR number, and in order to get a CPR number, you need a job. So until you get a job, you will be staying in an Airbnb. And so for that, I'm going to account for 15,000 crowns per month for a 6 months period, which is long. Now, the next thing is the deposit and prepaid rent. For this second scenario, I'm only going to put in the deposit because the ongoing rent is kind of accounted for with the temporary accommodation. It's on a running basis, so let's just put the deposit as an extra, and that's 24,000 crowns. Now, food is of course the same, 3,000 crowns per person will cover that. And so is the transportation, 1,000 crowns per month will cover the transportation. However, be mindful about the car because you might not be able to use your car for an extended period if it's on foreign license plates. The rules are really hard about that in Denmark. I made a different video about that. I will link it up in the corner. But the extra expenses we will need to increase because in the first scenario we have counted with just getting by for a month. Now in this new scenario we are talking about staying here extendedly. So that means sure, grabbing a coffee with a friend every now and then, printing stuff if you need, but if you're going to stay for 6 months, that means you're also going to buy clothes. It also means you're going to get your hair done, and all of those can be expensive. What if you're a woman and you need to get your nails done? That costs money. So in this second scenario, we are going to increase that to 3,000 crowns per month. And then you have the rainy day fund, which is still 10,000 crowns, regardless of the length of the period. Now, you see that in these calculations, we can go from 59,000 crowns for 1 month to up to 169,000 crowns if you stay for 6 months. And it's really difficult to predict when you will be hired. You see, even locals are struggling to find a job. So as expats, it can happen quickly and it can happen after a long time, but it could be difficult and it's hard to predict when you will be hired. And I think 169,000 crowns, which is something like 22 or 23,000 euros, is a lot of money to save up and also a lot of money to burn. So this is why I strongly advise against coming here and then looking for a job. Look for a job remotely, and then once you get the job offer, then move into the country. That's the safe option, and that's how we did it. Of course, these numbers work for Aarhus because this is where I had experience. But now that you know how the calculation goes, you can also tweak it to the numbers that they might have in Copenhagen, if that's where you're moving, or if you're moving to the countryside, then you can use the numbers that will be relevant there and adjust it this way. So there you have it. These are the numbers. This is how much you need to save up in order to move into Denmark, according to my experience and opinion. I thank you for joining today, and I will see you in the next video.